Welcome to the Mental Path Podcast. I'm Dr. Gretchen Guevara. I'm a psychiatrist, which means I'm a medical doctor who specializes in mental health. I help people take care of their psychology, their body, and how they interact with their environment so that they can feel calm, confident, happy, feeling like they can actually do life. I am using my medical expertise, combining that with personal experience and my passion for personal development tools to really create a mental health toolkit that is actionable, that is usable in day-to-day life. My days are full of talking to patients all day long. I run a very busy clinic, and my emphasis in medical care is on psychotherapy, which is helping other people with coping strategies to manage life. Okay, so this episode is all about the new year, but not in a way like big resolutions or big life goals, but really looking at something else, a different angle, which is focusing on mental health goals. Maybe you're feeling worn out already, a little overwhelmed, or maybe just not interested in this whole new year, new me thing. If that's you, that's me too. Today, we're going to talk about mental health goals in a way that actually makes sense for real people like you and I with real lives and real responsibilities and nervous systems that are already doing a lot. We got to take care of our brain in order to take care of our mental health. We're going to do this Q&A style. But before we get into your questions, I want to share something I did on New Year's Eve. You know, one of my favorite end of the year rituals is to actually sit down with my calendar and go month by month through the year. I go all the way back to January 2025 and really look at what actually happened, not the things that I just wanted to remember. So this year, I actually saw a lot of good things, a lot of time with my family, finally went on a trip internationally since COVID for the very first time. And I've had more days where I actually felt present. But unlike some other years, there weren't big flashy events. No new business launch, no huge job transition like in 2024, and no obvious external super big milestone. And for a second, my brain did what a lot of many other people do, which is to question myself. I was asking, wait a minute, did I do enough this year? That thought actually gave me a pause, because I knew it wasn't true. I know how hard I worked. I know the mental and emotional load that I carried and all the invisible labor that never makes it into like a milestone kind of marker. So I went back through my calendar again, but this time I had a different question in mind. Instead of asking, what did I produce this year? I asked myself, well, what did I refine this year? So what I saw was that this was a year of refining my flow. I experimented so much with my workflow, my systems, how I structure my days, how I think about my work and my content, and what I actually want to put out in the world, like what I talk about in this podcast, for example. In fact, a few years ago, I've actually done a practice course or a beta launch of an online course, which I definitely loved and enjoyed. And the plan was to launch it formally last year, but that didn't happen. Instead, that whole year was spent clarifying how I wanted to reach people in so many other ways and how I actually want to create courses and put my professor and doctor mind in the proper mindset to make this online course happen. So I noticed how much I was playing with my schedule, my ideas, and none of that would show up as big achievements, but all of it was about building a life that is actually more meaningful, more peaceful, calmer, and also more sustainable for my nervous system. If I had not slowed down and gone month by month, it would have been so easy to slip into that old story of you didn't do enough. This year wasn't big enough. That reflection really reminded me of something I want you to hold as you think about your mental health goals, that not every good year has a headline. Some years are about building foundations, refining systems, and getting honest about what works for you and what doesn't. Those years matter just as much as the ones with big dramatic milestones. So as we talk about goals today, keep this in the back of your mind. It's not just, what do I want to do this year? It's also, and most importantly, What am I quietly building behind the scenes that might never show up on a vision board, but completely changes how I live? That New Year's Eve exercise showed me how quickly my own brain can minimize a year that doesn't look grand from the outside. And that's where a lot of your questions live, actually, the ones that we're going to be talking about today. Not in how do I crush my goals, but in how do I stop feeling like I'm always behind? Okay, like last episode, we're going to do this Q&A style. I'm answering some questions that you've asked in my socials and DMs. So let's start with the first one. Question number 1. What if I don't even want goals? I just want to feel less tired and burnt out. This is such a real place to start. This is an awesome question because it's so common. The thing I hear most is some version of I don't care about resolutions. I just want to stop feeling exhausted all the time. When someone tells me that, I'm not thinking right away, you just need more motivation. What I'm actually thinking is that, wait a minute, this sounds like nervous system overload, chronic stress, or maybe even a kind of hidden burnout, the kind that you can function through, but your system is really quietly maxed out and it's screaming for attention and care. So the shift I want you to consider is wanting to feel less tired is completely valid mental health goal. Most New Year messaging is about big resolutions and dramatic changes, like the six pack and all of that stuff. But a lot of people are skipping the basics, like rest, recovery, and energy management. When I look back at my 2025, that's basically what my year ended up being about last year: foundations. I didn't officially call it the year of rest or something like that, but looking back, that's kind of like what the pattern looks like when I went through my calendar. I saw a whole year of experimenting with being less depleted and stressed out. I built in longer breaks or more frequent micro rests or micro breaks during the day. And I definitely need that since I talk all day long and problem solve and think all day long for work. I also tried my best, again, not perfectly, but I tried my best to focus on more sleep, basic nutrition, and this one I'm more disciplined about, actually using my resets. That's the same ones I teach other people to do because they work. The big difference was not that I never felt off my routines. I definitely did. The difference was what I did next when I'm off track. So instead of beating myself up for days or weeks, I asked, all right, what actually happened? What got in the way? What can I tweak? Then I reset instead of spiraling or beating myself up for it. That reset mindset is a mental health goal all by itself. So if this is you, you're not just chasing big resolutions, you just want to be less tired. Your first mental health goal is not a brand new morning routine or the latest productivity hack. It might sound more like, well, this year, I'm going to stop pretending I'm fine and I treat my stress like something real that needs care. I wish everyone really takes that to heart. That one decision changes how you schedule your time, how you say yes and no, and how you let yourself recover. What tends to happen is that in my clinic and also in my real life is that your energy comes back when you're doing this. Your brain slowly clears. You sleep a little better, you rest more effectively, you feel a bit less wired, less tired. And from there, bigger and more creative goals start to feel possible again. Not because you've pressured yourself into them, but because you finally have something in the tank. You have energy to sit down and think about goals. What if this year, instead of trying to be impressive all the time or doing the biggest things all the time, if you just focused on feeling less tired? Like, what if your main mental health goal was just to really take care of your energy, both physically and emotionally? I mean, try thinking about how your choices could shift if that was your main priority. Again, just something to sit with. It's so powerful. All right, but let's move on to question number 2. How do I set a mental health goal that isn't just fix my anxiety or fix my depression? Again, I hear versions of this all the time. My goal is to fix my anxiety. My goal is to stop being so sensitive. Usually when someone says that, I already know they're worn out and frustrated with themselves. At my job, I don't usually set goals around erasing a specific symptom, because I see symptoms as signals. It's usually more complex than that. For anxiety, for example, it's your brain trying to tell you something, your brain and your body trying to tell you something. The work is understanding what it's trying to say and why, not just silencing or shutting it down. So instead of this idea of fix my anxiety, I want you to zoom out and look at root causes, the underlying reasons that the anxiety is there in the first place. And one way to do that is using a mind body environment less. And this is usually the framework that psychiatrists like me actually think. And this is what we use in everyday practice. And it could sound like this. For example, when you're getting curious about your body, you can ask, what is my body doing when I'm anxious? How's my breathing? What happens to my heart rate? Am I clenching my jaw, tensing my shoulders? Am I not sleeping, or am I over caffeinating? Then you can ask questions about your mind or your attitude, like, what story does my brain tell me about this anxiety? Does it jump to, I'm weak, or I'm broken, or something's wrong with me? Does it predict disaster in every direction or immediately attack my character? Again, your ways of talking to yourself matter so much. Next, get curious about your environment, your surroundings. Asking questions like, what in my daily life keeps pressing the alarm or making me anxious? Is it workload and overcommitment? Is it a specific relationship or ongoing conflict? Are you having constant notifications and never really being off duty? Like you're not taking a break. Are there any health issues or caregiving duties that keep my stress system on high alert? So ask those questions. A lot of the time, people just zero in on just one thing, like the exam or looking for work or maybe a breakup, and they miss out on what else might be going on. There's so much more that is at play. If you only pay attention to that one single trigger, you're not really giving yourself the best shot at making progress, since there's a whole system at play that keeps anxiety around or any other symptoms. Your mind, your body, your surroundings are all pretty closely linked, and you cannot really ignore one of them because that means you're basically asking the rest to pull all the weight. And honestly, that never works out well. I know that it might seem like it's a lot at first, but this whole approach is really just about making life a bit easier to handle, just really zooming out and looking at the big picture. When you start paying attention to what's going on with your body, your mindset, and whatever is happening around you, you'll start spotting some pretty specific things you can actually do about it. For example, saying, I only have half as much coffee on days when I know there are going to be tough conversations, so I'm not all jittery on top of feeling nervous. That matters a lot in how that conversation plays out. What about saying, I've stopped doom scrolling at nighttime just so my nervous system actually gets a break before I try to go to sleep? What about saying things like, okay, if I know I'll get anxious, like before a test or a heavy conversation, I'll keep it simple. I have one small thing I do for my body, something I tell my mind, and something for my surroundings. See how that is? So here's how to think about goals with mental health shifts. So instead of trying to fix anxiety, it becomes more like, I want to figure out what my anxiety is trying to protect me from, and I'm going to take care of my body, my thoughts, and my environment so my nervous system doesn't have to yell at me just to get my attention about this anxiety. That's a whole lot more manageable. It's something you can actually start working on piece by piece instead of wishing you could just wake up one day as a totally different person. It doesn't happen that way. All right. So much information. We were just on question number 2. Let's keep going. Question number 3, and we have 5 questions total, by the way. Question number 3. Why do I start strong in January and then crash by February? This pattern is so common. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're failing. It's about how your brain is wired. So let's get into a little bit of neurotransmitter or brain science. So, of course, it's more complex than this, but we'll keep it simple. Let's focus on dopamine. That is a neurotransmitter, which is a chemical signal that your brain makes that's involved in motivation and reward. We usually get a dopamine boost when we're around new things or we're envisioning some future reward or success. That's part of why the start of the year can feel so exciting, like you feel so charged and hopeful. Plus, you're kind of pumped up by all the New Year's resolution thing around you. That's if you're into that. Now, when the newness or novelty wears off and your life stays just as stressful, your brain does something very practical. It starts labeling the goal as work. It's not as fun anymore. The same goal that felt exciting in the beginning, all of a sudden now feels like it's a burden, hassle. It feels heavy. And I've gone through this myself. I had a year where my big plan was to launch multiple online courses, like what I said earlier. Wrote them out, felt energized. I imagined all the people it might help. And then I kept getting stuck. By mid year last year, the pressure had built up so much that I wasn't enjoying the idea anymore. I literally had to step away. Now I'm more excited about it because I've been rethinking about it in a different way. So I didn't end up launching those courses last year, but the whole year taught me a lot about my capacity, my workflow, and what actually feels sustainable for me as a working mom and a businesswoman. So that season really drove home how important it is to keep goals simple and breakable. Big goals have to be broken down into small, almost unimpressive steps if you want your brain to keep showing up. I think of it like a workout or school, like training in general. You don't throw out your whole fitness plan because you miss one workout, and you don't decide school is a failure, or you have to just resign from the whole year because you had one bad exam. You notice where you fell off, and then you get back on the plan. So a big part of this, at least for me, is really self-trust. You build trust with yourself by one, having a plan that actually fits your life, and two, checking in with yourself regularly enough so that you can tweak the things before throwing in the towel. In a way, you're promising yourself, I'm going to keep investing in this step by step, and if something's off, I'll make changes. I won't just give up on myself or just disappear on myself. Does that sound relatable to you? And I know this is something that's super common I hear in my clinic, and sometimes I even have to reflect on these ideas myself. Here are a couple of questions I like to ask for any goal related to this. One, can I still do this even on messy days, like when I'm tired, cranky, or just feeling like I'm behind on everything? And two, if or when I fall off track, what's my plan for getting back on? And if you ask that first question and the answer is no, it doesn't mean your goal is wrong. It just means it might not fit with your real life just yet. And making that goal smaller doesn't shrink your value as a person. We have to really remember that any forward motion counts, even if you're just inching along little by little. I'm telling you, like medical school training really drilled this home for me. From the moment I set my sights on psychiatry to when I was actually finally practicing over 10 years now, there was no single big day where everything just worked out. It was step after step, thousands of small moves over years. That's really the trick for turning this New Year, January mindset into real change that sticks well past February and sustain it through the year. All right, let's move on. Question number 4. There's 2 more questions. How do I know if this healthy goal is actually perfectionism in disguise? All right, a lot of ambitious, high achieving people end up putting extra pressure on themselves with self-care, almost like it's another thing to grade themselves on. It looks good on paper, nailing the perfect sleep schedule, sticking to every workout, having these super organized morning and nighttime rituals, making sure you get outside and walk every day, all that ideal stuff that you see online. But honestly, after a while, those routines can start to feel kind of suffocating. Instead of helping, they become this running checklist, like you're always being judged. Even if it's just by you, you're judging yourself. Some people actually find all that structure comforting, but some people don't. For some people, it just chips away at them and creates more shame than anything else. So please, if this is you, pay attention. It's not really about whether the habit is good or bad. It's more about figuring out why you're doing it in the first place. So one question I come back to a lot, both for myself and when I'm talking to patients, is Do I actually have to be a completely different person every single day just to achieve this goal? If you're saying yes, chances are that's perfectionism at play, not real self care. And the truth is, your own energy, your daily routine, even your nervous system just aren't set up to deliver that same super productive, super optimized version of yourself all the time. Honestly, starting this podcast and putting myself out there on social media has thrown me right into the middle of this. I really do care about putting out good work. But if I'm not paying attention, I'll start comparing the stuff I make to those big accounts with teams behind them, millions of followers, and suddenly nothing I do seems good enough. If I let that whole mindset take over, I probably wouldn't be sharing anything at all. I'd be so scared. So, for me, what I've done is I've had to come up with my own version of perfect. These days, for me, perfect just means really showing up. It's about making choices that fit with my values, choices that line up with what matters to me, those that move me even just a little closer to the people I want to support. And honestly, all that weird moments, the mess ups, awkward silences, all the stuff you don't plan for, all the mistakes, that's still real and is still a part of it. And when I frame it that way, wanting to do better doesn't feel so heavy. It actually helps. That's the feeling you want from your goals, you know. If chasing perfectionism just makes you feel fake or like you're constantly at odds with yourself, you're constantly judging yourself. If you notice you're always on edge, having trouble sleeping, or your body's feeling the stress, that's a pretty clear sign it's time to stop and rethink things. Your goals are supposed to support you, not push your nervous system to the edge every single day, just for the sake of keeping up some streak. So maybe take a time and ask yourself what perfectionism even means to you. Then check in. Does that definition help you feel more like yourself, or does it pull you further away? If it's not working, that might be your sign to change the goal, or at least what you think that goal is supposed to prove about you. All right, let's move on to our last question. What if my life is already full? What does a realistic mental health goal look like? Okay, this is super important. If you're thinking that's me, I get it. Your days are packed, caring for family, working, maybe in school, juggling multiple roles. Hey, that sounds like my life. The idea of adding a stack of new habits can feel like a joke. It's almost laughable, right? Another thing to add. But the thing is, in situations like this, it's usually not about adding a whole list of good habits. Instead, it might just be about changing one tiny thing that can make your daily life, a little less stressful. Like when it comes to mental health, sometimes the real progress comes from those really small changes. And even though they're small, that doesn't mean they don't count. In fact, a lot of the small changes, the small foundations, they're the ones that support the really big ones. One powerful small habit, for example, is simply catching your thoughts, catching yourself. Catch the moment you notice a change in your mood, a change in how your body feels, shift in your attitude, or the way you're making a decision. That's it, just noticing. When you're aware in the present moment, you can change the course of the next moment. Think about what that means right before you walk in the door to your kids, sit with your partner, or respond to a message that could go sideways. That pause can really change the tone of a relationship and the way you feel about your life. Another big piece is rest and energy management. Rest does take effort, like planning, facing guilt for resting, or managing emotions. But once it becomes a pattern, it gets so much easier. So you can ask yourself things like, how do I manage my energy during the day? On a work or school day, do I actually take a break when my body gives me these early signals like I'm starting to yawn or get hungry or thirsty? Do I even let myself get up and use the restroom? Or do I keep overriding basic needs? So many people do that. And then I see them in my clinic and wonder why they're all stressed out, right? We need to take care of our body's basic needs. These sound small, but really stacked together, they all matter. Even low-grade physical stressors can increase emotional strain, so we have to pay attention to the small things. For super busy people, like myself, here are a few small but super meaningful examples. For example, when you're commuting, maybe you're listening to something that calms your system instead of something that spikes your stress or fuels your road rage. Maybe you're giving yourself a less frantic morning by waking up 5 to 10 minutes earlier or getting things ready the night before. So you're not starting the day in full rush mode or adrenaline mode. Or what about this? What about trying not checking your phone or email first thing in the morning or being on your phone right before bedtime? Like these small habits are so important for your mental health. Then you've got those relationship habits. Let's look at our relationships because they are super important. Things like how you say goodbye or hello or that good night routine with your kids or your partner. They don't seem like it's much, but honestly, those small, predictable moments, they can really set the mood at home a lot more than any big, occasional, grand behaviors or gestures. For example, here's one thing. Something I started doing with my family a couple of years back is really something super simple, but it stuck. I kept a little whiteboard on the fridge that says, "Today I'm grateful for." And then I put all of our names in there. And every day I jot down one thing. And they're super simple things like could be nature, my health, music, or saying things like, oh, for my helpful kids. And if anyone else in the house wanted to add something, all they had to do was to write their own response. And over time, it really shifted the tone of our home and some of the conversations we're having. Sometimes, this is my favorite part. Sometimes my husband would write things like, "I'm grateful for my wife and my best friend." And oh my goodness, it felt like a super special love note in the middle of an ordinary day. Really puts a smile on your face and moves your nervous system just a few steps towards gratitude and feeling safe. So when your life is already full, your plate is super full. Realistic mental health goals don't have to be big. They can be small, repeatable, and they will still be powerful, especially when they protect your energy, your relationships, and your nervous system from constant low level stress. And we have this all day long if you pay attention. All right, those were super awesome questions. Thank you for sending them my way. As you're setting your mental health goals this year, here's a quick reminder. There's no need to try out for some bigger, better version of yourself that's super grand. It's totally okay to focus on goals that help you feel safer, more grounded, maybe even just a bit more honest with what's really going on for you. And not only on being more productive or being more fit. Those are important too. But remember your mind and remember your emotions. We really got to take care of our mental health, especially now. Let's make this year be our best mental health year. That can be the grandest goal as far as our health for this year. If you're not sure where to start, try making one really small change that makes your day even just a little easier on your nervous system. Say it out loud or jot it down somewhere on a piece of paper or on your notes on your phone. Then just check in with how your body feels afterwards. If you notice yourself relaxing even just a tiny bit, great. You're probably moving in the right direction. All right. Thank you so much for kicking off the year by taking the time to look after your mind and your emotions. Let's help each other make our mental health a priority. It makes life, everything else, so much easier. And if this episode gave you some light bulb moments, some aha moments, please share it with someone you care about who could use these reminders. And I'll see you again for more Q&A sessions in a couple of weeks.